College went down to East Orange, New Jersey to take on the Upsala Falcons in a hard-hitting football game. We'll see how James Grant, Donald Crump, and the Ramapo defense led by Jimmy Williams crushed the Upsala Falcons on this week's program, Timeout with Coach Jim Miceli.
Hi again, folks, and welcome to Timeout with Coach Jim Miceli. My name is Peter Goetz. On this week's program, we'll talk about Ramapo's big win over Upsala, a 34-7 victory. They really crushed Upsala, and we'll preview what can just be called the game, and everyone knows what you're talking about, the game against the Trenton State Lions down in Trenton. My guest, as usual, as always, is head coach Jim Miceli. Jim, thanks for taking time out.
Sure, Pete.
Jim, it was an easy victory, 34-7, but it wasn't that good at halftime. It was a 13-7 score, and you weren't very happy.
It wasn't as easy as I guess a lot of people thought it should have been, but you know, I guess that's a credit to Upsala. They played a real good football game. You know, they've played pretty well the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, they were only losing 6-0 at the half to Glassboro. Eventually, they lost 21-0. And last week, it was 0-0 against FDU at the half, and they eventually lost 19-0. So maybe they're not as bad a team as everybody thinks. I know not only as a coach, but I'm sure as a player, it's a real difficult game to get up for because you go out on the field, you see 35 players in the whole program. Some of them even play both ways at some times, and it's a difficult game to get up for. You know, especially we got the ball, we scored in 6 plays, we were up 7-0 real early, and I'm sure our kids kind of thought that, hey, this is going to be a 60-70 game, and then, you know, at the half they're only winning 13-7.
Yeah, one can only assume that the reason it was so difficult was because you were looking ahead to Trenton.
Yeah, and you know, that, unfortunately, Pete, I think that's the youth of our team. That's why I said at the beginning of the year, I don't think we're ready to be a great, you know, a great football team. I think we're a year away, and Saturday was another example of that.
Okay, this week, of course, you have the Trenton State Lions. I don't want to get too much into the preview again. I want to save that for the last bit. But what are your chances of making the playoffs real quickly? Well,
it's a 50-50 kind of thing, Pete. You know, they're not, the ECAC doesn't give you a whole lot of information. Basically, all they're going to tell you is there are 15 teams in contention for 2 games. So basically, you're talking about 15 teams in contention for 8 slots, 4 NCAA slots and 4 ECAC slots. So somewhere along the line, 7 teams are going to get left out in the cold. So it's a 50-50 kind of thing. Obviously, by beating Trenton, you would knock one of those teams out of a slot. So I guess we're in a little bit better situation than we were last year, because of the strength of our schedule. We replaced, you know, a weak team with an Iona. Now we have a complete 9-game schedule. So I think because of those reasons, you know, we're in a little bit better shape than we were last year. But again, I don't think anybody knows until Sunday morning really what's going to happen.
And it really can't help that Ramapo is not a marquee name team.
No, I'm sure if it comes down to Hofstra, Ithaca, or Ramapo, you know, you're going to go with Hofstra and Ithaca. Not because they're a better football team than we are necessarily, just because they've been there before. They have more of a name. You got to remember, Pete, it's really only been these 2 years that Ramapo has really gotten any kind of recognition in football.
Okay, why don't we look at the first half highlights of the Upsala game, Jim?
Sure, Pete.
Ramapo, as you said, you didn't play real well, but it wasn't a disaster either. You guys weren't apparently weren't real up for the game. What was the sense going in? Did you think they were a little flat walking off?
Well, yes and no, Pete. I thought that, you know, coming out, we knew we had to play well to impress the ECAC scouts that were there. You know, I thought offensively we played well. We only had 3 possessions and we scored 2 touchdowns. You know, that clock went real fast in the first half, Pete. The whole half only took 1 hour.
All right, here's their halfback.
Okay, this kid killed us. This kid rushed for 122 yards Saturday, and, you know, he's a good back. And again, Upsala's like a lot of teams. You know, they may not have a great team, but they certainly have individual people who can hurt you. And again, that was their first series of downs. They went down the field. They had a 33-yard field goal attempt that they missed. Now, this is our first series of downs. This is the second play of the game for us. And you can see Donnie Crump, who's just really coming into his own as a back. Ever since the Iona game, he has really done some good things.
Jim, real quickly, tell us about how fast the clock moved. You mentioned the whole half only took an hour.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Pete. even if you run the clock, you know, there are 15-minute quarters. There's our first touchdown, a pass to Albano. Even if you have just running time, which is a 15-minute quarter, I think the first quarter took less than 15 minutes. So, you know, there was no clock, there was no scoreboard. It was a little shaky situation.
Okay, a little bit funny, this situation in Upsala. There's 7-0 Leo. Keith Riotis drilling the extra point. All right, Leo.
And, you know, again, offensively, I didn't think we played bad. But here you're going to see now some of the miscues we had on defense. There's a big play for them. That put the ball down on about the 7-yard line. And now they've had 2 possessions, and they've moved the football. Here they had a penalty. They come with a halfback option pass. And this is Marion Bell, who's really come into his own for us. Came out for football late, started this ball game for us, and did an excellent job at cornerback.
And, you know, if they score there, then they probably end up going into halftime tied with you.
Oh, well, if not beating us with our extra point field goal situation, they may have been up 14-13. Here's a kid that amazes me, Paul Brush, a freshman. Brought him into camp as an offensive guard. We needed a kid to be a tight end early in the year. We made him a blocking tight end. He's probably caught 4 or 5 passes for us.
Here's the reverse angle of it.
Right, this is another play. This is Mike Suglia here making a reception. Again, it was nice to have Michael back, and he caught 2 or 3 passes for us against Saturday.
Okay.
Here's a young freshman we've talked about 2 or 3 times, Pete, Anthony Turner. You can see the power and the strength that he possesses. Again, he's 220 pounds, only a freshman. And again, he's got a real bright future here.
Is he your best blocker as a running back?
Him and Bridget are pretty close. Both of them are very equal in just about everything they do. It was a nice play by Grant. Trap option play, went down the line of scrimmage, picked up 6 or 7 yards, and then, you know, pitched the ball back to Crump and got 4 or 5 more.
And that play really shows how an option quarterback gets hit almost every play.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, they say that it's real tough for an option quarterback to be a good passer, and I agree with that, and I think Grant does as good a job as anybody at that.
There's Crump scoring. It looked like Womack, by the way, was in.
Yeah, he was on about, if he wasn't in, he was on about the 2-inch line, but they said he wasn't in, so we just gave the ball to Donnie Crump, and he took it in for us. Here's a kid who started defensive back at the beginning of the season. Since they've moved him to quarterback, they've moved the football really well the last 3 weeks, and here's that fullback again. Again, he had 122 yards. Probably had as good a day rushing against us as anybody's had all year.
Was Joe Hudson out there for you?
No, he wasn't. He was just Saturday. Joe has missed 3 ball games, and we certainly missed him. And there's a, you know, a fade pattern down on the goal line that, you know, they threw a couple of those early in the quarter against us, and they, you know, unfortunately for us, they capitalized on it right before the half. And that made the score 13-7 at halftime.
Okay, you told me earlier that you weren't at all happy with the halftime score of 13-7. That's obvious. Did you blast the guys at halftime?
Well, I didn't even have a chance to be honest with you, Pete, because the other coaches were already in the locker room doing that for me. Usually we don't react that way at halftime. We've talked quite a few times about that. You know, we like to sit the kids down and make adjustments and, you know, try to talk football with them, because you only have 15 or 20 minutes, and to waste 6 or 7 of it yelling at the kids, that really doesn't help the situation. Really, the only time that we did that this year was against Jersey City, because I just felt that the kids were real down and you know, down because of the Montclair game, not up for that game, and I thought that they really needed somebody to say something to them. But Saturday, our guys were a little upset. You know, I think, again, it was a game where it's very difficult for the coaches and for the players to be up for, because you go out there, you see 35 kids, you say to yourself, wow, you know, they don't even belong on the same field with us. And then you go in at halftime 13-7, and maybe that was good for us. Maybe that woke us up a little bit.
And you mentioned that you made quite a few adjustments. In my opinion, if Ramapo isn't the best football team in the conference, and there is an argument to be made for a couple of teams, of course, Montclair, Trenton, and Glassboro, then you're the best second-half team in the conference, because your coaches really get the kids prepared by making good adjustments.
Yeah, I think our guys do an outstanding job of that, Pete. And, you know, I guess if you had to be a first or second-half team, you'd rather be a second-half team, although some coaches may argue with me in saying if you're a good first-half team, you set the momentum of the game. But I'd rather be a good second-half team, and I'm happy that we're that way.
And we'll come back and look at those second-half highlights as Timeout with Coach Jim Miceli returns right after this. Stay with us. And welcome back to Timeout with Coach Jim Miceli. My name is Peter Goetz. Jim, the second half looked much better. Why don't we take a look at the highlights?
Okay, Pete.
All right, let's roll.
Good half for us, Pete. You know, both ways we stopped a lot of the things that they did early in the first half. You know, they had a lot of success running a trap play against us and sprinting out and getting to the corner, and I thought we did a good job of stopping those things. Here's a counter boot pass first. Michael Brigida, who the last 2 weeks has had great games catching the football for us. You know, Michael is always probably noted for his short yardage ability, his blocking, his ball carrying skill, but he had a great, the last 2 weeks, he's probably caught 6 or 7 passes and had great games for us catching the ball. And here's going to be one of them, a touchdown reception. Great play again by Grant. There's Michael coming over the middle, breaks the tackle there, and just walks into the end zone.
He looked more like a 165-pound halfback there.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, for a 225-pound kid, he's got real good athletic ability.
Sure does. Because he has to put some fear into the eyes of his opponents.
No question. He's you know, he's not a one-dimensional kid, and here's something I was real happy about.
Two-pointer.
This is probably the first two-pointer that we've made in 3 weeks, and you know, I was certainly happy about that. And again, that was Mike Sugley, who's become a real clutch player for us.
His ribs are better now.
Yeah, here's that little quarterback, and again, I was impressed with him. I thought he was a real good athlete. I give a lot of credit to the Upsala coaches for making that change and making him the quarterback about 3 weeks ago. They told me their offensive production has tripled since he's been the quarterback.
Wow, here's Jimmy Williams, all kinds of speed.
Right, he had 3 sacks Saturday. Again, it's to the point with Jimmy now where he plays so well every week that you just expect these big plays from him. And when the player, you start to get that way with a player, you know you're dealing with a great player.
This is Maurice.
Yes, Maurice. Jimmy came with a sack. The very next play, Maurice comes in with an interception, so that was kind of ironic. But, you know, Maurice has been a little banged up, really pretty much since the Glassboro game with his ribs, and every week he's coming back a little bit stronger and stronger. Here's a great run and catch by Womack. This kid is just, he did this 3 times against Stony Brook. He made a couple of really big plays against Patterson. He is certainly right now, Peter, if you had to just, a kid had to stand out in my mind as being the most improved player from last year to this year, I would have to say it's Chris Womack.
Jim, he was having some trouble catching some balls that were hit him right between the numbers. We talked about that maybe 6, 7 weeks ago, and you said, well, we're working on that. I don't think he's dropped a pass since then.
No, he hasn't. He's really been a big player for us, Pete. And, you know, I think he's one of the reasons why we've had some success this season.
Sure.
And again, defensively, we're starting to play better. Here's a play. God, if you saw that, Jimmy missed the kid by about a quarter of an inch, and he just found that little seam, got in between them, and that was the first down for them. That was a 3rd and 5 play, and they ended up getting the first down because of that. Here's here we are early in the 4th quarter here, and you know, we're yelling fake, 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 and there it is again. It's almost the same play that Glassboro ran, which ended up winning the game for them. You can see our kids weren't happy with themselves for allowing that to happen again. I'm sure we're going to see that against Trenton. Here's Jimmy Williams again. That's his 3rd sack. Again, Pete, it's to the point with Jimmy where you expect him to do these kind of things. And I think you could be dealing with one of the best football players in the conference right there.
Wow.
There's a sprint out pass again, Grant to Albano, and you can see that, again, David may not be the fastest guy in the world, but he's just got that uncanny ability to make people miss, catch the football, and make big things happen.
He's got a quick first step, too.
You know, again, I said at the beginning of the year, and I'll say it again, he's got to be one of the most feared offensive players in the conference.
That's a touchdown there, Jim.
Well, they said it wasn't. They ruled again. As they ruled Womack on the 3-inch line, they ruled Albano on a 2-inch line.
Just a matter of time.
Right, and here's Glitten Span, who's finally coming back little by little. Of course, he has a slight fracture in his wrist, and he scored, I think, his 3rd or 4th touchdown of the season. Here's a young kid, John Perch, a defensive back, came in, made a big play for us. He's one of our leading tacklers on a kickoff team, and he has a bright future here at Ramapo.
And the celebration afterwards.
Yeah, it was a celebration, but I think something that, as you can see, you know, nobody's jumping for joy. I think it was a game that we were supposed to win. We did win. I think after the game we felt like we did our job, and you know, again, it was one of those games that you couldn't win when you were in our position. If you won 70-0, you're supposed to. If you won 35-7, you were supposed to. If you only won by a touchdown, you didn't win by enough, and God forbid if you lost the game.
One of your players who had an outstanding game was Kevin Grayson. And we'll be back to talk to Kevin as Timeout with Coach Jim Miceli returns right after this.
Hi, I'm Beth Depker, and I'm here today with Ramapo College's defensive tackle Kevin Grayson. Kevin, how important was Saturday's game against Upsala?
It was very important, but first of all, I want to thank the sports production class for what they're doing. You're doing a great job this year.
Thank you.
The importance of this game was that we had our first chance at an ECAC bid, And it was a rep there looking at the game, and we had pressure on us to do well, very well. And we started off slow because we played a slow team. We had to adjust to it, and our adjustment came off with a 34-7 victory.
In the first half, it was kind of slow. I was there, and I was expecting a blowout here. It was a less than perfect football team, Upsala. They hadn't won a game yet all season. And then in the second half, you guys blew it away. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can, but Upsala's a great team. I mean, they stick together. They're 0-8 before they played us. And they had a lot of heart, a lot of pride amongst themselves to stay there. You know, we had, like you said, we had to just bear down, listen to the coach, and look at ourselves and go, we cannot lose to this team. We cannot be their first victory. No. So we got together at halftime and came out and was very victorious.
Well, football seems to be going well. Here at Ramapo College, we talked earlier, and you talked about some of the activities that you do, because we all know that football isn't everything. Tell us some of the stuff that you do here at Ramapo College.
I'm a treasurer of the OAU, Organization of African Unity. I'm an executive staff person of advertising for the Entrepreneurs Club. I also work on campus in the receiving department, and I go to all my classes on time, Mom.
Kevin, this week's game against Trenton State seems to be a very, very important game. Just how important is this game to you and Ramapo football?
Well, last year we sort of was like the spoilers last year. We beat Trenton and they couldn't go to the playoffs. This year we want to do the same thing. And we have to come out there strong and aggressive from the front four, Warren Morrell, Vinnie, Cristofi, myself, Kenny Hearns. We have to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, because he's, I guess, the best quarterback in D3 right now. And with that, we can really put a hold to their program and ourselves go to the playoffs for the first time in Ramapo's history.
So you think that you have a good shot at making it to the playoffs?
Yeah, a better than fair shot. The odds are against us, but we're not against us. That's the main thing.
Well, good luck to you and Roadrunner football.
Jim, Kevin Grayson has been one outstanding defensive force this year.
He really has, Pete. He's really been a force for 2 years. He's a kid who came over from a junior college, did a real good job, has one more year of eligibility next year. He's one of those guys that he's real tall. You know, he's only about 5'11", goes about 250, 255. Has great quickness and great strength. Probably one of our harder workers in the off season.
Those guys who are short and big are really hard to block, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. Vinnie Cristofi's very,
right.
You know, that's our defensive scheme, is to get those guys in gaps and move them around a little bit. And you know, Kevin has just great strength to go along with his quickness.
And they work out in the weight room quite a bit, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. You know, one of the problems that we do have with our weight program, Pete, is we don't have the biggest weight room in the world. So it's very difficult for us to run a real good.
May have the smallest, though.
Yeah, it's really difficult for us to run a real good in-season program. But our off-season program has been very, very good. And you know, some of our guys have put on 20, 30, 40 pounds and probably increased their strength maybe 30 to 50 pounds in a bench press. So you know, Chris Lange and Sam Giuliano run that program for us. They do a real good job with that.
We had a chance to talk to Chris about it.
Here at Ramapo College, the football coaches feel that the strength and the conditioning program is a major factor to the success of Roadrunner football. I'm standing in front of the weight room, and inside the players are getting ready for a very important Trenton State football match on Saturday. Let's go take a look.
How you doing? My name is Chris Lange. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach here at Ramapo College. What I'd like to talk to you about today is, you know, our in-season weight program and our out-of-season program that we use for our football team. We start each January when the kids come back from winter break. Right? We start our off-season winter program. Okay, and that runs from the end of January through the end of May. Okay, what we're looking for during that time period, okay, is just the building of overall strength. Okay, then we go through the exam period at the end of the semester and give the kids a week off. Okay, just to let their bodies relax and grow and replenish themselves. Okay, and we start with the summer program, and the summer program runs through the end of May up until August 15th to 18th, whenever we come in for camp. Right? And then the third part of our strength and conditioning program is our in-season program that runs from you know, the beginning of camp through the end of the season. Okay. Now, going back to January, okay, and starting with our winter program, what we do is we test, okay, all the football players when they come back from break. All right, we test them in the bench, we test them in the squat, okay, And then what we also do is what we call deadlift. All right? And during this part of the conditioning, all right, we'll work in 5-week cycles. Okay? The first 5 weeks take us right up until spring break, and then the second 5 weeks, okay, takes us to the end of the semester. So keep up the good work, get in the weight room, okay? It doesn't have to only be, you know, for the student athlete, the football player, baseball player, just anybody in general, okay? Just as far as building confidence and just feeling good about yourself. Get in the weight room and do your thing.
Great.
And welcome back to the final segment of Time Out with Coach Jim Miceli. Once again, my name is Peter Goetz. Jim, it's being billed as the game. That's all you have to say around Ramapo College, and everyone knows you're talking about the Trenton State Lions. They're 8-0-1. You have a chance to knock them off the pedestal and get into the playoffs.
Pete, you know, I like these kind of games simply because we're an underdog. I think our team, as we've talked about quite a few times, I think we play a little bit better in underdog roles. Last year, most of the games we were underdogs, and you saw the outcome. And this year, really, with the exception of the Montclair game and the Iona game, we were favorites in every game. So the underdog role hasn't been with us a whole lot this year. You know, we had a good talk with the kids yesterday, and also I had a good talk with my coaching staff. And here's what I told them: regardless of what happened Saturday, you had an excellent season. I think you need to look at Ramapo a little bit differently than you probably would look at some other football programs that were taken over. You know, when you take over a program that was 128-1, and when I say take over a program, I don't only mean myself, I mean everybody involved. I really believe that. You know, you probably needed to take 3 years and look at the program 3 years from when you took it over. So we'd be talking about approximately 30 games. After 3 years, if your record was 15-15, you would probably have to say, hey, we did a heck of a job with this program. And I told the kids, if the worst you can do in 2 years is be 14-5, then you've got a lot to be proud of. And just go out there Saturday and play football. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain. If you win the game, you knocked off the potential conference champions for the second year in a row. There's still some possibilities of an ECAC playoff. And I think our kids are going to play a good football game Saturday.
Okay, last year Ramapo beat Trenton by 2 points, winning the game late. Oh, by 1 point? It was real close, 2018.
19-16.
19-16, 19, whatever. It was real close, 3 points. And this year's game, though, presents a few different problems, and his name is Darren Roberts. He didn't play last year. He was injured. He's a transfer from Penn State.
Yeah, he did play a little bit against us last year, Pete. But, you know, the scariest thing about Trenton, as good a player as Roberts is and as much hype as Roberts has got and Steve Ware, their fullback, gets, the situation is that if Roberts were not to play well or get hurt, this kid Steve Mortalight is the kid who played and beat Montclair last year and has started 3 games for Trenton this year and is 3-0 as a starting quarterback. So I think what I'm trying to say is I always brag that we have James Grant and Akeem Cargbo, 2 great quarterbacks in one program. Trenton can pretty much say the same thing. They could be the best football team that we've played this year. They could be. I'm not saying that they are.
Better than Montclair, then.
Well, they're a different kind of team than Montclair. Montclair is a physical, brute kind of team. They're going to run the ball at you. They're going to try to knock you off the line of scrimmage. Where Trenton is probably a little bit more similar to we are, a little more of a finesse team. Option football, sprint out football, using Roberts' athletic ability, getting the ball aware. Defensively, they use some more quickness and do some more things than Montclair will do. This should be a real interesting game Saturday.
You know, I have to question Trenton's guts, though. They go for a tie against Montclair in a game they could have went for the win with 12 seconds left or 21 seconds left or something like that. They could have went for the win. They could have gone through the season with a chance to be undefeated, untied, but yet they went for the tie.
You know, Pete, I usually don't say a whole lot, and my one argument will be if, and I will say if again, if we do beat Trenton on Saturday, and it were to come down for us at Trenton for an ECAC game, of course we would be 7-2, and Trenton would be 8-1-1. My argument would be we beat this team outright. How could you keep us out of an ECAC game and take them when we lost the game because we went for the win? We easily could have been 7-1-1 with an identical record if we opted for the tie. I just feel, Pete, and I'm not saying anything, I understand why Eric Hamilton did what he did. You know, people do things in different ways or have different philosophies. My feeling has always been, if you're going to play a game, I don't care if it's football, chess, whatever, if it was meant to be tied, then there should never have been a game to start with, because that's the way the game starts. Nothing, everything is even. There should always be a winner and loser in everything you do.
I still say he has no guts. All right, offensive key to the game, defensive key of the game.
Offensively, Pete, I think we need to do something that we really have not done a good job of this year, and that's control the football. I think most of our touchdowns, if you go back and look at our stats from the Stony Brook game right through the Upsala game, the majority of our touchdowns have been on big plays. And I think against a team like Trenton, when you have a kid like Steve Ware and Darren Roberts, you need to keep the ball away from them a little bit. So I think we need to control the ball, probably a little bit better than we've done most of the year. And that's not to say we haven't had a good offensive season, because we have, but I think we need to do it in a little different fashion this week. I think our key defensively is no question, whether it be Mortalite or whether it be Roberts, we need to stop the quarterbacks. We need to force them to do things that they don't do well. Drop back and throw the football, not sprint out. Try to contain the option game. The only problem with Trenton is this kid Ware, I don't think he's as good a player as Dan Walsh, but he's a different kind of player. He's got a little quicker hips. He's going to dart and move on you. So he creates some problems himself. And I think defensively, we need to force the quarterbacks and need to force Trenton to do things that they don't want to do.
Hopefully you'll do those things. Good luck to you, Jim.
Thanks, Pete.
Hopefully next week as well, we'll be back to talk about a possibility of a playoff berth. And let's all keep our fingers crossed. That's it for Time Out with Coach Jim Miceli. My name is Peter Goetz. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us.